Beeman Show. Today is a Macro Monday podcast episode, and I am trying something new. I am going live on YouTube while I record this episode, and hopefully I'll be able to do that more. Today is a really great podcast episode. If you have been following me on social media, then you know that I've been doing a series called How to Lose 20 Pounds by Summer, and I'm literally breaking it down step by step by step every single day. If you want to find those videos, they are on my Instagram, they're on my Facebook, they're also on my TikTok, and I have them in a playlist on TikTok where you can actually go through them step by step. I am not leaving anything out of this series. So I'm teaching you exactly like I would teach my clients. I am leaving nothing on the table. You can take this information, you can use it for free, and I will teach you how to lose 20 pounds by summer. Now, with that being said, there are some topics that we are touching on that I do feel like I can go a little bit deeper in longer form content. So on YouTube, on the podcast, all of the things. And today is one of those days that I want to dive a little bit deeper into how to actually find your calorie deficit. So before we get into how to find your calorie deficit without guessing, I want to talk about something. The only way that you can lose weight is if you are in a calorie deficit. And the only thing, we're going to talk about this a lot more, the only way to figure out if you are in a calorie deficit is your body and if your body is releasing that weight. So with that being said, we need to talk about how to find the number that you need to start with on your calorie deficit. Now, also, I want to preface this, and we'll go deeper into other episodes with this, but even though the only way to lose weight is with a calorie deficit, there are a number of different ways for you to get into a calorie deficit. And the way that I'm going to teach you how to find that number is going to be the baseline of everything that you do. So today, like I said, we're going to talk about exactly how to find your calorie deficit. The thing is like I said before, the only thing that is going to determine whether you are in a calorie deficit or not is your body. It's not a number from a coach. It's not a number from an online calculator. It's not what somebody else is eating, but it's literally from your own data. Because if you've ever said, like, I'm eating at a deficit, but nothing has happened, there's a really great chance that you're never have been in a deficit, or you've never actually found your true baseline to begin with. And this is really important. I want you to remember that everybody is different. Everybody releases weight at a different rate, and everybody has a different life. So let's talk about why calculators and generic plans tend to miss the mark. So online calculators can be really helpful to start with, but they're simply just estimates. And I will say, I am a coach who gives out macros and calorie numbers, and I make estimates. And the more accurate my clients tend to track their calories and their macros or the data, the easier it is for me to make adjustments in order to find what will actually work for them. So online calculators and generic plans, they don't know how consistent you actually are. They don't know what your food choices are. They don't know what your stress level is. They don't know what your sleep is. They don't know what your activity outside of the gym looks like. They don't know your diet history. And there's one big thing that they don't know: what your body is currently maintaining on. They have no idea. I've had women come to me that are eating, 3,000, 4,000 calories. I've had women come to me that are eating 1,400 calories, and they're all maintaining. So every calorie deficit number is going to look different for every single person. So two women can be the same height, they can be the same weight, they can maintain on completely different calories. That's why blindly jumping into a calorie deficit oftentimes backfires. As well as, we don't want to start with a super dramatic calorie deficit at the beginning, because if we do that, then we are going to be setting ourselves up for failure, because it's inevitable in a weight loss, fat loss journey that you are going to hit a plateau. So that just means that your body is working correctly if you hit a weight loss plateau, but you have to pull more levers. So meaning you have to either lower your food or you have to up your movement in order for that calorie deficit to continue to work. And if you start with a very, very low calorie deficit, once you hit that weight loss plateau, it's going to be really hard to pull any levers. And most of the time, what's going to happen is you're going to need to come out of that calorie deficit. You're going to need to get in maintenance for a little bit. You're going to have to let your body recover from the stress that it's under when it's in a calorie deficit in order to do another fat loss phase. So here's the most accurate way to find your calorie deficit. The most accurate way to find your calorie deficit, it's really simple, but it requires you to be honest. And I want you to remember this. Without awareness, you can't change anything. And this is simply data that we're going to be looking at. So the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to download some kind of calorie tracking app. I personally love MyFitnessPal. I know that some people don't like it. So find one that you love. There are so many different ones out there. I know that there are free ones, but download something that you can track your food on. And I don't want you to change a thing. I want you to track exactly what you are eating right now for 4 to 5 days straight. I don't want you to change your habits. I don't want you to try to be quote unquote good. I don't want you to cut things out. I want you to eat how you normally eat. This is really, really super important. I want you to track everything that you can as accurately as possible. Even the bites, even the snacks, even the weekends on the meals, or even the weekend meals. I don't want you to have judgment about this. Again, this is awareness, because awareness is going to bring clarity. And the more data we have, the easier it is going to be to find which numbers are going to work for you and how you can actually continue to see results without making big, drastic changes. So this is going to give you real data. At the end of those 4 to 5 days, I want you to look at the average amount of calories that you're eating. And normally this is going to be your baseline. So if you've been maintaining your weight while you're eating what you're eating, this is probably where your maintenance is at. And if that number is higher, I want to congratulate you, because you're in a really great spot to start a calorie deficit and not have to have your calories be super low. So this number that you find, the average over 4 to 5 days, is going to be your baseline. And the calories that it's likely your maintenance right now. That's the starting point. It's not a calculator that's going to give you this number. It's not a coach's guess. This is really like real life data that's going to help you to find that starting point. So if you don't know what you're currently maintaining on, you will have no idea what a deficit actually is for you. And most of the time you're going to feel frustrated if you use an online calculator to get a number, or like if you sign into MyFitnessPal and it tells you to eat 1,200 calories, you're going to be starving. A deficit is not a random number. It is simply less than what your body currently needs to maintain. If you skip this step and you start too low on your calories, your hunger is going to skyrocket, your cravings are going to increase, your energy is going to drop, and your consistency will fall apart, and your body is going to adapt quickly. And this is why so many people feel like they're doing everything right, but they can't stick to anything. So I know I already talked about this, but let's touch on a little bit more. This is why you should not start with a big deficit. And this is super, super important. Fat loss is not about eating as little as possible. It's about eating just enough less to create change while you're still supporting your body. Because being in a fat loss phase, trying to lose weight, is actually stress on your body. Your body doesn't want that. It wants to maintain homeostasis, and it wants to stay the same. So when you start to put stress on it to change, when you start to do things that are going to require it to change, that's putting stress on it. So when you start with a big calorie deficit, your body is going to adapt faster. You're going to burn out sooner. You're going to lose muscle instead of fat, and your progress is going to stall. So starting smaller is going to allow you to maintain your energy. It's going to allow you to go harder in the gym. It's going to help you to control hunger. Hunger is going to be inevitable in a calorie deficit, but you can control a little bit better if you're eating higher calories. So you can stay consistent longer, and consistency is actually what will drive fat loss more than anything. We can get into the conversation around losing 1 to 2 pounds a week. I think that it is BS, like advice and information that people put out there, because oftentimes, especially when I've been working with women the ages of like 35 to 60, it takes a couple weeks of consistency for that body to start releasing that scale weight. So with that being said, we're going to talk about how to create your first deficit next, but you need to stick with that for a couple weeks before you make any changes. So once you have been tracking for 4 to 5 days straight, the next step is simple. We are really just going to reduce those calories by 200. If you want to do 300, you can. However, I would suggest with starting by 200 first. Reduce those calories by 200. Whatever that average was, take 200 out, and that's it. Not 500, not 1,000, not as low as possible. Because again, if you want to get to your goal weight, it's probably, number one, going to take a lot longer than you think it's going to take. And if you hit that weight loss plateau too quickly, then you have to come out of that fat loss phase. So this small deficit gives you room to adjust later, and it keeps your body responding. What I want you to do next is stay consistent for at least 3, maybe 4 weeks before you make any changes. It usually takes some people some time to get used to tracking, especially if you're new to that. So not only is tracking what you're eating right now going to help you give you the data to figure out what your calorie deficit is going to be, but it's also going to help you get in the habit of tracking. So once you figure out, your baseline, then we're going to take 200 from that, and then we're going to start tracking accurately for 3 to 4 weeks. And of course, you're going to be measuring your fat loss. So if fat loss it's not measured in days, it's really just measured in trends. So we're going to be tracking our weight, at least I would say that's a whole nother episode for another day. But I personally like to weigh every single day, if not at least 3 times a week, to get the average number of what's going on and to see where the trend is going. If the trend is not moving down, then you can adjust again in another 3 to 4 weeks. If it is moving down, do not change your calories until it stops. There's no reason to make changes when you are seeing results. And that's something that happens a lot. And that's something that I talked about in my Thursday episode last week, where sometimes the middle is boring. Sometimes we just got to keep going and doing what we're doing because it's working. And it might feel like, oh my gosh, I should be doing more, or I could be doing this, or I could be doing that. But if what you're doing is working, please, please, please do not change anything. So let's talk about this mindset shift. This process requires patience. You're not behind, you're not broken, and you don't need a more aggressive plan. You simply need data. You need consistency, and you need a strategy that is going to work with your body instead of against it. So finding your calorie deficit is not about restriction. It's about understanding your body so that you can make more informed adjustments. Now, the biggest takeaway, if you want to stop guessing and start seeing results to do this, again, we're going to track what your current intake is for 4 to 5 days. Find your true baseline. Create a small sustainable deficit of, taking away 200 calories. And then stay consistent before you adjust anything. This is how fat loss actually works. It's not fast, it's not flashy, but it's effective and it's sustainable. So if this episode helped you clear up any things, make sure that you subscribe so you never miss another Macro Monday podcast episode. And if you want help dialing this structure in with accountability and a plan that actually fits your life, then I want you to think about joining my next challenge called Sunshine Shred. This is exactly the kind of foundation that we're going to build inside of that challenge. And we don't start until February 17th. So there's still a lot of time for you to jump into that program. I will link it in the show notes below. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I will talk to you in the next one. Bye.